The most dangerous attachment is not the one that makes you miss someone. It is the one that makes you negotiate with your own dignity just to keep them close. You know the moment. Your phone is in your hand, the message is open, and your mind is searching for the perfect words. Not too emotional, not too cold, not too needy, not too direct. Just soft enough to be accepted, clear enough to be understood, and careful enough not to push them further away. So you write, then you delete, then you write it again. And somewhere inside you, a quiet truth rises. This is not the first time you have tried to explain pain to someone who keeps repeating it. That is where the pattern begins to expose itself. A late reply becomes something you analyze for hours. A cold tone becomes something you blame yourself for. One small moment of warmth becomes enough to make you forget the days when you felt invisible. You start living between hope and disappointment, between the person they were in the beginning and the person they keep showing you now. You are not blind. You feel the distance. You see the effort shrinking. You know when you are the one reaching, waiting, forgiving, and trying to keep something alive that the other person has stopped protecting. And the hardest part is this. You already know you should walk away, but you are still waiting. Waiting for the apology, waiting for the change, waiting for the moment they finally realize that the person they treated casually was the same person who kept showing up with patience, loyalty, and a heart they did not know how to protect. But listen carefully. If you need them to regret losing you before you can feel valuable, then they still control your peace. That is not self-respect. That is emotional captivity. Stoicism teaches one brutal but freeing truth. You do not control when another person wakes up. You do not control whether they feel your absence. You do not control whether they look back one day and understand what they lost. You control your response, your standards, and how long you keep standing in a place that keeps making you smaller. Walking away is not revenge. It is not a trick to make them chase, not silence used as a weapon, and not you disappearing so they finally panic. Real walking away is quieter than that. It is the moment you stop arguing with reality, the moment you stop calling crumbs patience, anxiety love, and self-abandonment loyalty. And yes, it will hurt. You may miss them, remember the good days, and wonder if they feel the silence where your care used to be. But pain is not always a sign that you made the wrong choice. Sometimes pain is the price of breaking a pattern your heart got used to surviving. When you finally walk away, they may feel what they lost. They may notice that your warmth is no longer waiting, reach for your attention and find silence, and finally understand that what they took for granted was never guaranteed. But that is not the real victory. The real victory is not making them regret losing you. The real victory is that you stop losing yourself. So if you are tired of explaining, tired of waiting, tired of shrinking just to keep someone close, this is where the lesson begins. Not with hatred, not with drama, and not with revenge, but with the quiet strength to choose yourself before you disappear completely. Let's begin. 1. The moment you realize you are the only one still holding on. There comes a moment when the truth no longer needs proof. You are sitting there, looking at the same phone, the same silence, the same half-hearted effort, and something inside you finally stops defending what keeps hurting you. Not because you stopped caring, but because you are tired of being the only one carrying a connection that was supposed to be held by two people. You notice it in the small things first. You are the one starting the conversation. You are the one explaining the distance. You are the one forgiving the coldness. You are the one trying to bring back the beginning while they keep showing you the present. This is where many people get trapped. They do not hold on to the relationship as it is. They hold on to the memory of what it used to be. They remember the warm replies, the long talks, the attention that once felt easy. They remember the version of that person who made them feel chosen, and they keep using that memory as an excuse to ignore the pattern in front of them. But a memory cannot love you back. A beginning cannot protect your peace. A few good moments cannot carry a relationship that now makes you feel alone while you are still attached. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And that is exactly what happens when you are the only one still holding on. You are not only suffering from what they are doing now, you are suffering from what you keep imagining they might become. You imagine the apology, the change, the message that explains everything, the moment they finally wake up and say, "I understand now." But while your mind is living in that imagined future, your body is living in the real pattern, waiting, doubting, shrinking, hoping, and losing peace. So the first Stoic step is not to hate them. It is to see clearly. Stop asking what their potential could be and start asking what their pattern has been. Do they show up consistently or only when they feel you pulling away? Do they care about your pain or only about the inconvenience of your reaction? Do they protect the connection or do they let you do all the emotional work and call it love? These questions are not dramatic. They are necessary, because if you do not ask them, you will keep mistaking your effort for their commitment. Here is the rule: do not keep watering something alone and then call it a relationship. If you are the only one repairing, the only one waiting, the only one explaining, the only one afraid of losing it, then you are not protecting love. You are protecting an illusion. And illusions are dangerous because they do not break all at once. They keep giving you just enough hope to delay your freedom. This does not mean the person never cared. Maybe they did. Maybe there were real moments. Maybe a part of them still has feelings. But feelings without effort will not give you peace. Feelings without responsibility will not give you safety. Feelings without consistency will keep you starving beside someone who gives you just enough to stay hungry. So before you ask how to walk away, ask yourself what you are still holding that they have already stopped carrying. Ask what truth you keep explaining away, because the answer would force you to choose yourself. Ask why you keep calling it patience when your nervous system knows it is pain. The first step is not leaving the person. The first step is leaving the illusion that you can hold the whole thing together by yourself. That is where your strength begins, not in anger, not in revenge, but in the quiet honesty that says, "I cannot keep carrying what they no longer protect." 2. Why staying too long teaches people to take you for granted. The longer you stay where your presence is not protected, the easier it becomes for someone to believe they cannot lose you. They may not say it out loud, they may not even think it clearly, but they begin to act from that belief. They reply later because they assume you will still answer. They give less because they assume you will keep giving more. They apologize without changing because they have learned that apology is enough to reopen the door. And, little by little, your loyalty stops looking like something precious and starts looking like something permanent. This is how being taken for granted usually happens. It is not always loud. It is not always cruel in the beginning. It begins when your kindness has no boundary, when your patience has no limit, when your forgiveness has no requirement for change. You keep saying, "I understand," even when understanding is starting to destroy your peace. You keep giving another chance, even when the last chance taught them nothing. You keep trying to prove that your love is real, while they keep proving that your pain is not urgent to them. This is the part you need to see clearly. You are not responsible for their character, but you are responsible for the access you continue to give them. Epictetus taught, "Some things are in our control and others are not." You cannot control whether they become grateful. You cannot control whether they finally wake up and see your value. You cannot control whether they regret the way they treated you. But you can control whether you keep standing in the same place, offering the same warmth, to someone who has learned there is no real consequence for neglecting it. That is not bitterness. That is responsibility. Because if every time they disappear, you are still waiting. If every time they disrespect you, you still explain. If every time they give you crumbs, you call it effort, then you are training the pattern to continue. Not because you deserve it, but because your actions have started saying what your words deny. Your words say, "This hurts me." Your actions say, "You can keep doing it and still keep me." That contradiction is where your dignity begins to suffer. You feel it inside. You say you are done, but you go back. You say you need respect, but you accept confusion. You say you know your worth, but you keep negotiating with someone who treats your presence like background noise. And each time you do that, the other person learns something, but so do you. You teach them that your boundary can be crossed, and you teach yourself that your own word cannot be trusted. So stop calling endless tolerance love. Love has patience, yes, but patience without standards becomes self-erasure. Love forgives, yes, but forgiveness without change becomes permission. Love gives, yes, but giving without self-respect becomes emotional surrender. There is a difference between being loyal and being available for repeated disappointment. There is a difference between having a good heart and handing that heart to someone who keeps treating it carelessly. Here is the practical rule. When the pattern is clear, reduce access. Do not announce it like a threat. Do not turn it into a dramatic speech. Just stop making yourself as available to the behavior that keeps hurting you. Reply slower. Share less. Stop chasing clarity from someone who creates confusion. Stop rewarding inconsistency with constant emotional presence. Let your actions finally agree with your self-respect. Because your presence should feel warm, generous, and loving, but it should never become so guaranteed that someone forgets it is a gift. If they only understand your value when they can no longer reach it, that is their lesson. Your lesson is to stop placing your worth where it is treated casually. You do not walk away to prove you are valuable. You walk away because you finally stop participating in the lie that your value requires their recognition. 3. When love becomes a way to abandon yourself. Love becomes dangerous when it teaches you to disappear quietly and call it devotion. At first, you do not notice it. You think you are being patient. You think you are being mature. You think you are choosing understanding over ego. So you stay calm when something hurts you. You lower your voice when you should be honest. You accept less effort and tell yourself, at least they are still here. But little by little, you begin to build your life around keeping someone close, even if keeping them close means moving further away from yourself. This is how self-abandonment begins. It does not always look dramatic. It looks like checking your words before you speak, because you are afraid they will pull away. It looks like pretending you are fine, because asking for more has started to feel dangerous. It looks like accepting confusion, because clarity might force you to face the truth. You stop asking, "Is this good for me?" and start asking, "What can I do so they do not leave?" And once that becomes the question, love has already changed into fear. A line often attributed to Buddha says, You only lose what you cling to. In this kind of attachment, what you lose first is not always the person. You lose your voice, you lose your calm, you lose your standards. You lose the simple ability to wake up and feel centered before checking whether someone has chosen you today. That is not love making you deeper. That is attachment making you smaller. Real love may require patience, but it should not require self-erasure. It may ask you to forgive, but it should not ask you to keep bleeding from the same wound. It may pass through difficult seasons, but it should not turn your entire emotional life into a waiting room. There is a difference between loving someone through imperfection and abandoning yourself to survive their inconsistency. One has dignity. The other slowly breaks your inner authority. So look at what this connection is doing to you. Are you becoming calmer, clearer, stronger, more honest? Or are you becoming anxious, careful, dependent, and afraid to say what you need? Do you feel loved, or do you feel relieved whenever they finally give you attention? That difference matters. Relief is not the same as peace. A moment of warmth after days of uncertainty is not proof of love. Sometimes it is just the smallest dose your attachment needed to keep going. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes practical. You are allowed to care, but you are not allowed to hand over command of your life. You are allowed to miss someone, but you are not required to obey the fear of losing them. You are allowed to love deeply, but if love turns you against your own peace, your own standards, and your own self-respect, then it is no longer guiding you. It is consuming you. Here is the rule. Before you ask, "Do they love me?" ask, "What version of me is this relationship creating?" If it is creating a version of you that begs quietly, waits endlessly, explains repeatedly, and accepts less just to avoid being left, then the problem is no longer only their behavior. The problem is what you are becoming in order to keep it. You do not prove love by abandoning yourself. You do not prove loyalty by tolerating emotional hunger. You do not prove your worth by staying available to someone who keeps making you feel replaceable. If staying with them requires you to keep leaving yourself, then walking away is not the loss. Staying is. 4. The quiet decision, walking away without hatred. The strongest walk away is not the one that makes the most noise. It is the one that finally ends the argument inside you. No long final speech, no dramatic message, no last attempt to make them feel guilty, no performance designed to prove that you are strong. Just a quiet decision that says, "I cannot keep staying in a place that is teaching me to disrespect myself." That is the moment walking away becomes self-respect instead of revenge. Most people wait until they hate someone before they give themselves permission to leave. They think they need rage, proof, a final betrayal, or a perfect explanation. But you do not need to hate someone to admit they are not good for your peace. You can remember the good moments and still respect the pattern. You can care about them and still stop giving them access. You can wish they had treated you better and still refuse to keep standing where you feel smaller every day. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That sentence matters here. Do not let their coldness make you cold. Do not let their neglect make you cruel. Do not let their inability to value you turn your heart into a weapon. If you leave, leave clean. Leave with dignity. Leave in a way that does not make your healing another form of attachment to what they did. This is where Stoicism becomes real, not as a quote, but as a decision. You stop asking, "How do I make them regret this?" And you start asking, "What action protects my character?" You stop asking, "Will they miss me?" And you start asking, "What does staying keep doing to me?" You stop measuring your strength by their reaction and start measuring it by your ability to choose what is right, even while your emotions are still shaking. Because walking away will not always feel powerful in the beginning. Sometimes it will feel like grief. Sometimes it will feel like doubt. Sometimes your hand will want to reach for the phone and turn one more wound into one more conversation. That is the test. Do not confuse the urge to explain with the need to stay. Do not confuse missing them with being meant for them. Do not confuse pain with a command to return. Here is the practical rule. Leave from clarity, not from chaos. If you are leaving only to punish them, you are still tied to their reaction. If you are leaving only to make them chase, you are still waiting at the door. But if you are leaving because the pattern has become clear, because your peace has been shrinking, because your self-respect can no longer survive inside the same cycle, then leave without turning back every 5 minutes to check whether they noticed. You do not have to insult them. You do not have to expose them. You do not have to prove to the world that you were right. Sometimes the pattern itself is the proof. Sometimes the closure is not a conversation. It is the moment you finally stop participating in what keeps hurting you. Say what needs to be said, if it must be said. Say it once. Say it calmly. Then let your action carry the rest. That is not weakness. That is discipline. Anyone can leave with anger. Anyone can slam the door. Anyone can disappear just to create fear. But it takes a stronger person to leave without becoming bitter, to protect their peace without trying to destroy someone else's, to walk away while still having feelings and still choose not to abandon themselves again. You are not walking away to make them suffer. You are walking away because staying has become a punishment to yourself. And when you understand that, the decision becomes quieter, cleaner, and stronger. You don't need hatred to leave. You need honesty. You need self-command. You need enough respect for your own life to stop remaining where love keeps costing you your peace. 5. What your absence reveals and why you must not wait to watch it. Absence doesn't create your value. It exposes the value they got used to receiving without gratitude. When you were there, your care was normal to them. Your patience was normal. Your forgiveness was normal. Your ability to answer, soften, understand, and return became part of the background of their life. They did not protect it because they thought it would always be there. They did not fear losing it because every time they gave less, you somehow found a way to stay. Then one day, you stop filling the space. You stop sending the first message. You stop explaining why you are hurt. You stop warming a connection that keeps leaving you cold. You stop standing at the same door with your heart in your hands, hoping this time they will open it differently. And when your energy is no longer automatic, something changes. The silence becomes noticeable. The comfort disappears. The person who thought they could always reach you begins to feel the distance they created. This is why the title says, when you finally walk away, they feel what they lost. Not because you became more valuable after leaving, but because your value was hidden under their sense of access. Some people do not notice water until the glass is empty. They do not notice warmth until the room becomes cold. They do not notice loyalty until it no longer waits at the same place. But here is where many people ruin their own healing. They walk away, then keep turning around to see if it worked. They stop texting, but keep checking if the other person watched their story. They become silent, but only to see if silence makes them miss them. They post something, not because they are free, but because they want to be seen as free. That is not walking away. That is waiting in a more polished form. Lao Tzu said, "Care about what other people think, and you will always be their prisoner." This does not only apply while you are with them, it applies after you leave. If your peace depends on whether they notice your absence, you are still their prisoner. If your silence is built around their reaction, you are still communicating with them without words. If your healing is secretly designed to make them regret, they are still at the center of your life. So, here is the rule. Leave, then live. Do not leave and watch. Do not leave and perform. Do not leave and keep measuring your value by their response. If your absence teaches them something, let it teach them. If it does not, keep moving anyway. Your job is not to manage the lesson they receive from losing you. Your job is to stop losing yourself, trying to make that lesson happen. This is the Stoic discipline. You act from dignity, then release the outcome. You protect your peace, then stop checking whether the other person respects the protection. You choose self-respect, then refuse to turn self-respect into another strategy for attention. The moment you walk away to be noticed, you are still attached. The moment you walk away because staying violates your peace, you are free enough to begin again. And yes, they may feel it. They may miss your voice. They may remember how much you carried. They may reach for your patience and find that access has been removed. But do not make their realization your reward. Your reward is the calm that returns when you stop forcing your worth into careless hands. Your reward is the energy that comes back when you are no longer waiting for someone to notice what they should have valued while it was still there. If they feel what they lost, let them feel it, but do not stand there watching the lesson land. You have a life to return to, and that life cannot begin while your heart is still facing backward. 6. The test. Do not confuse their reaction with real change. The real test begins when they feel you pulling away. Before that, the pattern is clear. You are tired, you are hurt, you are giving more than you receive, and you know something has to change. But once you step back, once your energy is no longer automatic, once your silence becomes real instead of threatened, they may finally react. A message appears. A call comes in. A soft sentence arrives after days or weeks of coldness. They say they miss you. They ask why you changed. They act hurt, confused, or suddenly emotional. And if you are not careful, the part of you that waited so long to be chosen will call this love. Do not move too fast. A reaction is not the same as transformation. Some people do not return because they finally understood your heart. They return because they felt the loss of control. They miss your attention, your forgiveness, your emotional labor, your ability to make them feel important without requiring them to become responsible. They miss the role you played, not necessarily the person you are. That is why one message can feel powerful, but still mean very little. Seneca wrote, "Time discovers truth." Let that line slow you down. One emotional night does not erase a repeated pattern. One apology does not rebuild trust. One moment of tenderness does not prove that someone has developed the character they lacked when you were still there. Time reveals whether their words are rooted in accountability or only in panic. Time reveals whether they respect your boundary or only want relief from the consequence. Time reveals whether they want to love you better or simply want the old access back. So look at what their reaction carries. Do they take responsibility, or do they make your distance the problem? Do they ask how they can repair the damage, or do they pressure you to forget it? Do they respect your pace, or do they rush you back into the same closeness that once made you easy to neglect? These questions matter because your attachment will try to answer them too quickly. It will hear, "I miss you," and forget the nights you felt alone. It will hear, "I am sorry," and forget how many times sorry was followed by the same behavior. It will hear emotion and mistake it for maturity. Here is the practical rule. Do not give old access to unproven change. Listen if you want to listen, but do not surrender your peace at the first sign of their discomfort. A person who truly values you will not treat your boundary like betrayal. They will not punish you for protecting yourself. They will not demand the old version of you who forgave quickly, answered instantly, and made their comfort more important than your clarity. Real change does not need to rush you. Real change can stand in front of your pain without turning itself into the victim. This is where many people lose the progress they fought for. They walk away, feel strong for a moment, then one soft message pulls them back into the same cycle. The other person becomes attentive for a week, maybe two. Then the old pattern returns, because nothing inside them actually changed. Only the threat of losing you changed their behavior temporarily. And if fear was the only thing creating effort, effort will disappear once they feel safe again. Do not punish them, but do not abandon yourself either. You can hear their words without handing over your life again. You can care without rushing back. You can miss them without letting one emotional reaction erase the truth your body had to survive. Let consistency speak longer than panic. Let behavior speak louder than apology. Let time test what emotion is trying to sell you. A reaction can reopen a conversation, but only consistent change can reopen trust. 7. The pain after leaving is not a sign you were wrong. The first pain after walking away will try to convince you that you made a mistake. You will miss the routine, the messages, the sound of their name, the small moments that once made everything feel possible. Your mind will start editing the story. It will bring back the good days first, the soft words, the moments they looked at you like you mattered, the version of them that made you stay longer than you should have. But it will not be as quick to bring back the waiting, the confusion, the coldness, the way your peace depended on whether they decided to show up. This is why you cannot trust nostalgia when your heart is wounded. Nostalgia is not always truth. Sometimes it is memory with the pain removed. It shows you the smile, but hides the silence. It shows you the apology, but hides the repeated behavior. It shows you the beginning, but hides the pattern. And if you obey it too quickly, you will walk back into the same place and call it love, because your loneliness made the past look safer than it really was. A line often attributed to Rumi says, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." In this moment, the wound is not there to send you back. It is there to show you what still needs healing. It shows you where you were attached, where you were afraid to be alone, where you confused being chosen sometimes with being valued consistently. If you run back every time the wound opens, you do not heal it. You only cover it with the same person who helped create it. Stoicism does not ask you to feel nothing. It asks you not to become a servant to every feeling. You can miss them and still know you should not return. You can love them and still admit the pattern was breaking you. You can feel pain and still choose the action that protects your future. That is emotional discipline. Not coldness, not denial, but the ability to say, "This feeling is real, but it is not my master." Here is the practical rule. When the urge to return hits, do not answer it immediately. Give it time. Walk, breathe. Write the message somewhere you will not send it. Remind yourself of the full story, not only the chapter your loneliness is trying to romanticize. Ask yourself, do I miss them, or do I miss the hope of who I wanted them to become? That question may hurt, but it will bring you back to reality, because walking away is not one decision. It is a decision you repeat. You repeat it when the night feels too quiet. You repeat it when they post something that pulls your attention. You repeat it when a song, a street, or a memory makes your chest tighten. You repeat it when your mind says, maybe it was not that bad. And every time you choose the truth over the craving, the old attachment loses a little more power. Do not be ashamed that it hurts. Pain after leaving does not mean you were weak, and it does not mean you were wrong. It means your heart got used to a pattern, and now it is learning how to live without it. Let it hurt with dignity. Let it hurt without surrender. Let it hurt while you rebuild a life that no longer depends on someone else's inconsistency. Missing them is human. Returning to what kept breaking you is a choice. 8. Rebuild a life that no longer waits for them. After you walk away, the worst thing you can do is keep building your life around whether they notice. You go to the gym, but part of you imagines them seeing the change. You post less, but part of you hopes they wonder where you went. You become silent, but part of you wants that silence to make them uncomfortable. Be honest about this, because many people do not actually heal after leaving. They just turn their healing into another message aimed at the person who hurt them. That is still attachment. It may look stronger from the outside, but inside, the center has not changed. They are still the audience. Their regret is still the reward. Their attention is still the proof. And if your new life is secretly built to make them feel something, then you are not free yet. You have only decorated the same waiting with better habits. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Few things waste your life more quietly than pausing your future for someone who could not handle your presence with care. You already gave enough time to waiting, explaining, hoping, checking, interpreting, and shrinking. Do not give your healing to them too. That part belongs to you. So rebuild with the right motive. Do not improve your body so they regret losing you. Improve it because your body deserves strength after carrying so much stress. Do not return to your work so they see you winning. Return because your purpose deserves the energy you were pouring into uncertainty. Do not become more private so they panic. Become private because your peace should not be available to careless people. Do not rebuild your life as revenge. Rebuild it as recovery. Start with what is in front of you. Clean your room. Fix your sleep. Move your body. Eat like someone who has decided to protect himself. Stop feeding your mind with memories that reopen the wound. Stop checking their page and calling it curiosity. Stop turning every quiet hour into a courtroom where you retry the relationship. You do not need a perfect transformation. You need one disciplined day, then another, then another. This is where Stoicism becomes practical. It is not about sounding wise while your life stays chaotic. It is about directing your attention back to what you control. Your morning, your habits, your work, your reactions, your standards, your environment, your next honest action. When your mind tries to run back to them, bring it back to the task in front of you. When your emotions want to check, compare, or imagine, bring them back to your own life, again and again. That is how you take your power back. And do not underestimate ordinary discipline. A walk can be a return. A clean desk can be a return. A finished task can be a return. A night where you do not send the message can be a return. These things may look small, but they are how a person rebuilds trust with himself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you become less dependent on someone else choosing you. One day, they may see the difference. They may notice that you are calmer, harder to reach, less reactive, more focused, more alive. They may feel that the person they once accessed so easily is no longer standing in the same place. But by then, let that be background noise. The goal was never to become impressive to them. The goal was to become whole to yourself. The greatest comeback is not when they want you back. It is when you no longer organize your life around being wanted by them. Rebuild quietly, not to prove, not to punish, and not to be watched, but because your life deserves your full attention. And if one day they feel what they lost, let them feel it from a distance. You have already returned to something more important, yourself. So when you finally walk away, do not make the mistake of thinking the story is about whether they feel what they lost. Maybe they will. Maybe they will notice the silence where your care used to be. Maybe they will reach for the comfort they once treated casually and realize it is no longer there. Maybe they will remember how patient you were, how often you forgave, how deeply you tried, and how much of your heart they received without understanding its cost. But maybe they will not see it at all, and that has to be okay, because the purpose of walking away was never to become a lesson they finally understand. The purpose was to stop living as someone who keeps abandoning himself in order to be chosen by someone else. That is the quiet victory, not the message they send, not the regret they feel, not the moment they realize